Good evening, class. I hope you're all well. So we have just recently concluded our first assessment test on the general principles of taxation. Now we are moving on with income taxation, no, as the last part of our uh, taxation on coverage. I have read your messages with regards to those students, especially you have not taken the first assessment test, and we will address that on an individual basis. But for this evening, we will discuss on the impact of train law on income taxation in general. So, as I said in our previous meetings, I would like to divide uh, the topics of income tax on individual income taxation and corporate income taxation. So pag dumating na tayo doon sa corporate, you will also be introduced with a new law called the CREATE law, which was just been implemented into law this year. This is naman to give leeway to corporations, to corporate tax rates as a way to survive the effect of the current pandemic. Okay. But this train law class, this has been implemented since 2018 and specifically January 1, 2018, no, from 2018 onwards. And it was divided into three tranches. So yung effect ng train law will be fully implemented come 2023. So I think at this point, we are now on the second batch. So ibig sabihin nun, there would be still reduction of taxes for those tax reduced by the train law and still increase in taxes for those taxes increased by train law. So just what they say, you have to get some to give some. So in train law class, ang focus ng government is to give a tax holiday on individual income tax earners. So this is very timely because we are discussing on income tax for individuals. However, no, as a general rule, train law also affects all forms of taxes. So, lumiit yung estate tax, donors tax. You will discuss further in your taxation too. Value added tax may expand yung coverage, but the drastic effect of train law really took its toll on consumption taxes or excise taxes, especially yung mga non-essential goods and services. So, as I said, the government in this amended the tax law wanted to give more um, relaxation on individuals' direct income taxes. However, no, because still the government has to earn revenue, the decrease in one sector for individual income tax and the other direct taxes per se, it resulted to a an increase naman on consumption taxes, or usually these consumption taxes are indirect taxes. So in one way, no, you're happy because with the trade law, 250,000 below yung annual income mo, you will be exempted altogether from income tax. However, with the prices of the commodity increasing because of the excise taxes on this cost of production, you will also feel the impact of that when you purchase these goods and services necessary. So one example, ngayon kung bibili ka ng sasakyan, mas mahal as compared before. That's mainly because of train law. Okay, so later on, I will discuss the specific taxes affected by train law. Actually, this is the brainchild of Carl Kendrick Chua, the former Undersecretary of Finance and now the Secretary of NENA. He's really brilliant. I've been following him. I've had the chance to watch his deliberation when this bill was still pending in the Congress. And, a beautiful mind, very, very articulate, and talaga makikita mo yung pagiging economist niya at saka mathematician. So, he was before in the private sector because I've been slightly following him all through his years of practice. Nasa World Bank siya before, and now he was invited by the government. So, if you've heard from the news, no, he has been known as the tax the poster boy of the Duterte's administration tax reform bill, si Carl Quintanilla. So he had a very big part in the crafting of this train law. So this is tax reform for acceleration and inclusion law, or RA 10963. Okay, so I said the Duterte administration wanted it to have its priority social economic welfare, so thus increasing the threshold for minimum wage earners, um, and also in order to reserve funds for its build infrastructures. So it taxed hefty charges on non-essential goods. So that's how the trade law came about. Um, so where will the proceeds, no, of the trade law go? So 30% will go to socioeconomic welfare benefits, education, health, so basic needs for the poorest of the poor, because essentially train law is intended for the poor. It's a pro poor tax reform. So nutrition, anti-hunger programs, housing, and so on and so forth. A bulk though of the train law is intended for the build program. So in fairness naman with the Duterte's administration, you can see infrastructures left and right. You have airports now. In fact, the one in Mactan is an international airport. Aside from that, you can see hospitals being built. Military infrastructures are also a priority. In fact, in our Marawi City, we have a 11-hectare military base to be constructed at the center of the most affected area. So there is a pending expropriation case here now in the RTC for this military camp in Marawi City. So in other words, you can see that the Duterte's administration, a bulk of their budget, as produced by the stream law, goes in these priority projects. Okay, so what is the effect? So this is where the hefty decrease, no, or relaxation of the personal income tax came about. So kung makikita nyo class, before kasi, if you compare it with the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997, when you have a net earning of 10,000 or more, you'll be taxed. But the starting rate is 5%. So if your net income for the annual period exceeds 10,000, automatically you'll be taxable. Right now, in the train law, as long as your annual salary does not exceed 250,000, then you will be exempt from income tax. As I will discuss later on, may mga nawala din na provisions. Like before, we have the basic personal exemptions and additional personal exemptions. Kung fully utilized yun, 150,000 din yun. No? So, tinanggal yun, na-simplify na lang in the rule that as long as your annual salary does not exceed 250,000, you are exempted from payment of individual income tax. Now, if you try to divide it, the amount into a monthly basis, so around 21,000 more or less. If you have a monthly earning of 21,000, then you will be exempt from income tax. Okay, so that's one of the main amendments in the trade law. This is class, for those of you who are reading the codals or taking this as a review, this is the amendment on Section 24A, yung scheduler rate natin on the normal income tax for individuals. Okay. So of course, no, this is on a personal income tax basis for compensation earners. Now, how about those individuals who are self-employed professionals or SEPs? So you may be a sole proprietor of a business, or you may be a professional like a lawyer, a doctor, a an architect. Okay, so you have a firm, you have a construction firm, etc., etc., or you're engaged in a business in a sole proprietorship entity. So that's just the same. If your earnings, no, what's earnings? That's net income. Gross sales or receipts minus all the allowable expenses. That's your net income. That will be the tax base. So the VIR will look at your earnings if it's 250,000 and below, 0%. So just like the section 24A I have shown you a while ago. Okay. Now, aside from that, no, don't be confused if this is your first time in taking up taxation one because for businesses kasi class, aside from the usual bottom figure income tax, you will also be taxed with indirect tax. It's either percentage or VAT or value added tax. So that's based on your gross sales or receipts. So if your gross sales or receipts, ngayon na-expand na rin yung threshold ng VAT sa 3 million. If your gross sales or receipts does not exceed 3 million, automatic ka sa 3% tax, 3% percentage tax, no? Regardless of your income. No, ma'am, hindi pa yun, double taxation, no. It's not double taxation. Na-discuss na natin sa general principles ninyo that because of the different purpose of the tax, it's not strictly speaking a double taxation. So it's allowed. So as a business owner, you will be taxed on your net income for the results of your operation. Well, if it's a loss, then you need not pay for the income tax. But aside from income tax, you will also be taxed with percentage tax or value added tax on your gross sales or receipts. So regardless of the expenses. Okay, so that's 3 percentage tax if your sales don't it's not above 3 million. Okay, or even if you opted to be registered as a VAT taxpayer, then you will be subject to that. Okay, so may bago sa sa trade law itong 8% flat tax on gross sales. So as I said kanina, if you are a self-employed person or if you're engaged in business, you will be taxed at least two kinds of taxes. One is yung indirect tax or of percentage tax or value added tax on your gross sales or receipt. This is without consideration as to the deductions, and you will be taxed also on your bottom figure net income. So in this scheme, in lieu of those two, the percentage tax and the income tax, you can opt to be registered on the 8% flat tax on gross sales. So this is where the tax specialist will come in. So you are given by the law an option, okay, to either be taxed in a conventional manner or apply for this 8% flat tax on gross sales in lieu of income tax and percentage tax. So we will discuss on this further when we start formally our discussion on individual income taxes. So this is just a purview of the um, relevant amendments or salient features of your trade law. Okay. Okay, so how does the trade law works? So to make up for the loss of revenue due to the reduced income tax, the law imposes higher taxes on cars, fuels, tobacco, cosmetic surgery, and some sweetened beverages. So kung mapapansin nyo class, there is a heavy increase or drastic effect of the trade law on non-essential goods and services. This is to pave way to the relaxation, as I said, of the loss of revenue due to the reduced income tax. Okay, so again, the purpose of which is to reduce the poverty incidence. Okay, however, as a drastic effect of that, the commodity prices also have increased because of this. Because these are all part of the production process, especially on fuel. There are businesses or activities that needs fuel as a part of their production cost. Okay. Um, one effect, no, just an example, because I've just read an article about it, uh, the actual implementation of the train law. Yes, marami tayong mga ano, take home pay ngayon, especially if you're a compensation earner. However, yung commodity prices din tumaas. So if you buy goods and services, you'll feel the increase in the commodity prices. Because as I said, uh, these excise taxes on these certain commodities are usually used in the production process. One of those drastically affected by this train law is fisher folks and the farmers. An example, if you're a fisherman, on a daily basis, you go to the ocean to go fishing. You cannot swim naman on your own. You have to use your boat, and usually these boats are motorized. So pag motorized yung boat, you have to fuel them. Okay, so the daily cost of the fuel increased. So the fisherman has a choice between shortening, the period of going ashore because konti lang yung nabiling fuel, or pay the fuel in full, but he also has to increase the cost of the product. Okay, so this all goes into the overhead cost in the production process, and eventually will be the effect of which is the increase in commodity prices. Okay, some sweetened beverages are also taxed heavily with this trade law. Okay. Ayun. So just an example, no, because these are all excise taxes class. Yung train law, they focused on the increase in excise taxes on this goods. I don't think it is included in your coverage for the bar exam. So you don't need to memorize all the rates. Wala naman masyadong legal application yung mga excise rates. Only that, they are tax based on some level of measurement or some unit price. So ito yung effect ng diesel, LPG, gas. So kung mapapansin nyo, the trend is upward. Okay. Now, with respect to fuel, I think uh, the goal also of the government is to increase non-renewable sources of energy, taxes on non-renewable sources of energy, to encourage naman the use of renewable energy sources, because if you could remember, you have the Renewable Energy Act of 2009, wherein the government really gave a lot of amnesties to these developers of renewable energy. So you have what are the examples of renewable energy? You have hydroelectric, solar, geothermal, biomass, wind. Okay, so I think they are zero rated. No, based on the law, may mga rebates din na binibigay sa mga host communities. So this is the way for the government really to encourage developers to invest on renewable energy sources. So the non-renewable energy sources were taxed higher so that the renewable energy sources will be developed. Okay. Usually, these are imported as well. So yung mga non-renewable energy, these are imported. In the current situation, the Philippines really uh, imports energy sources, especially for bulk usage of fuels. Okay. Tobacco, no? So there is a sin tax on tobacco, existing sin tax before the advent of train law is 30 pesos. Now there is uh, an increase by tranches. And mainly class, the increase never stops because on the last column, you will see onwards. So there is really an annual increase of 4%. So this is also a move to government to discourage use of tobacco. So mapapansin nyo, mahal na yung mga sigarilyo nowadays because of this sin tax law. So yeah. New cosmetic surgery tax. So this is new. This is a new introduction to your train law for purely aesthetic purposes. So kung if you will undergo liposuction sa Bello Medical Group, the client, I suppose this is a passed on tax. So the client will have to pay 5% aside from the value added tax of 12%. So this is on top of that. So again ha, walang double taxation on this. So coal is also increasing. VAT-based expansion. So this is naman with respect to the amendments the government made on VAT. So the increased threshold is from 1.9 million to 3 million. So again, don't worry, no, this will be discussed fully in your taxation too. But for now, okay, there are also sectors and individuals exempted from VAT. So kung mapapansin nyo, agricultural products, small businesses, total annual sales of 3 million, health and education. So yung mga social uh, uh, and yung mga social incentives ng mga products, they are exempted. Renewable energy, actually, hindi lang siya exempt, it's zero rated. So when you go to value added tax, you will see that it's better to be zero rated than to be just exempt, especially if you're engaged in business. Because pag zero rated ka, you will be allowed to refund or have tax credit on your unused, unutilized input taxes. So ano ba itong VAT? No, as just a general overview of VAT. VAT is an indirect tax on goods or on consumption. So it is a passed on tax to a consumer or to the next end user. Um, when you try to buy at Jollibee, tingnan nyo yung resibo nyo. Okay? For example, you buy 100 pesos, cost of the wood is 100 pesos, you will be charged 112 pesos. 12 pesos nun, or the 12% of the price will go to VAT. Okay. It will go to VAT. Jollibee will act as a VAT collector or the withholding agent. So doon pa lang sa act of buying, may tax ka na on the 12 pesos. And the Jollibee will collect this for you because they'll be the one to remit it to the government. So in a way, it's a withholding tax. Okay, but it's on a commodity or on a commodity basis. Okay, so there are several subjects of VAT and they are taxed accordingly, whether in the normal VAT, zero rated, or exempted. Okay, so it's a wide topic and really interesting as well. So aside from that, starting 2019, so this has already taken effect, the sale of drugs and medicines for diabetes, high cholesterol, and hypertension are all VAT-free. Okay? So these are usual conditions for us Filipinos, no? High blood, diabetes, high cholesterol. So all those medicine, uh, this is a new provision because before we have senior citizen discounts. Ngayon, this is added. Okay, starting 2021, socialized housing. So kung makikita nyo, yung mga maliliit na houses sold usually subsidized by the government, those are socialized housing. If the cost is 2 million and below per unit, then it is VAT-free. Estate taxes, there has also been a relaxation of estate tax because now family home up to 10 million is exempted and we now have a flat rate of 6%. Before, mas mataas yung tax rate, but now I think with donors tax as well, there is a decrease in the tax rates applicable. Now, passive income and other taxes. Okay, so the trend on this is increasing. Take note, classic, what I mentioned a while ago as to income, that's on active income or what we call as normal income tax. ito yung mga na-earn ng mga individuals on their compensation or on the engagement of business. However, individuals can also earn passive income on their income from deposits, investments, stock exchange. Okay. So the direct income tax was decreased, but the passive income earned by individuals are increased. Okay. So later on, we will focus this on this as well on the passive income and their treatment. So just quickly, there is a difference between stocks not traded and stock traded in the stock exchange. If you are a major investor or a major stockholder of a corporation and you bought the stocks directly from the company and you hold the stocks long term, then the stock you bought is considered not traded in the stock exchange. And if and when you decide to sell them and you realize an income on the sale of your long-term stock, then you will be taxed at 15% under the trade law. However, if you're a trader, okay, you buy stocks from the stock exchange. So for every transaction and for every gain you have, this is the amount of tax. So it's a bit uh okay, 0.6% of 1%. So still maliit pa rin because it's on a transaction, it's a daily or minsan minute by minute or hourly transaction. So fast yung turnover nung transaction in the stock exchange as opposed to the long-term held stocks not traded in the stock exchange. So the predecessor of the trade law is this NIRC of 1997. So this is what I was talking about, class. Before, the tax threshold for your normal income tax as an individual is at 10,000 pesos. So the moment that you earn 10,000 pesos, of course, after considering the 150, supposing you have fully utilized that, 150,000 basic and additional personal exemptions. So may mga authorized deductions ka doon before you reach this 10,000. However, with the train law, dinisregard na ng batas yung authorized deductions na yun, simplified na yung rule that as long as your net income does not exceed 250,000, then you will be exempted from income tax. Now, if there is an excess over the 250,000, the tax rate is directly felt, no, because it's 20%. On NIRC, nagsimula muna siya sa 5%. Okay? But if you are ultra rich, okay, you will be taxed 35%. Tingnan yung class sa NIRC. Directly, no, pag over 500,000 pesos yung net income mo, diretso 32% because the rate before is 32%. So that's similar to a corporate income tax rate. So those are the changes made in the trade law. So we are currently in the second tranche. Come 2023, there will be further reduction in the income tax rates. So from 20% to 15%. But again, if you're ultra rich, you'll be stuck at a 35% schedule. Cigarettes, again, during the NIRC era, flat rate yung sin tax natin at 30 pesos. Now, there is an increment of 4% every year. Okay? So, same with manufacturing products, manufacturing oils and other products. Okay? Mineral products, no, there is the advent increase. Okay, so these are all excise taxes, very, very straightforward on computation. That's why it's not asked in the bar exams because you're not asked to compute. This is a job of an accountant. Um, so it's enough that you know that there has been a shift to the increasing excise taxes on these products. Automobiles, okay, so the increase is also felt, and these are passed on because excise taxes are indirect taxes. Pag sinabi mong indirect taxes, diretso siya doon sa goods that you consume or that you buy, and then it's allowed to be passed on to the consumer. Okay, so kung middleman ka, you pass it on again to the other end user, to the next end user. However, if you are an end consumer, then you cannot pass it on to to anyone else. That's why each of the taxes on the stages of production will be burdened by the end consumer. What are the advantages of this VAT law? Okay, so lower taxes for individuals, socioeconomic problems depletion, because as I said, 30% of the resources of the government or revenue that results from this train law is intended for the poor. So meron tayong programs, the what do you call this? 4Ps, or the universal cash transfers on a monthly basis. The poorest of the poor, those who are qualified, are given stipends or allowances. Okay, better and more infrastructures. As I said, left and right, yung mga build, build, build program ng government. The taxes are made simpler. Okay, environmental problem depletion, because non-renewable sources are discouraged by imposing hefty taxes, whereas renewable source of energy is encouraged by all of these tax leeways or amnesties provided under the Renewable Energy Act of 2009, which I think is implemented nowadays. Okay, so this is a modern jeepney, electronic car, lesser traffic due to the road constructions, especially in Luzon, no? Ang dami na nilang expressways. Um, lesser pollution due to the Renewable Energy Act. Okay, so what are the disadvantages? So as I said kanina, as I repeatedly emphasize, there is an increased basic commodity price. In the news, if you've been reading the news, some sectors, fishermen, farmers, they're complaining of the impact on their production process. Okay, so in actually this increase in poverty rate, as of 2019, the poverty incidence in the Philippines have increased, and they attribute this to the VAT, because if you're not a taxpayer, wala ka namang incentives sa train law. And in fact, if you don't earn any income, negative yung effect sa'yo ng train law, because some of the commodity prices are now increasing because of this train law. So you cannot offset it against any source of income. Okay. So as I said, the train law has some good effects on some sectors, and uh, however, and unfortunately, the government also had to sacrifice some sectors, because the government had to get some to give some. So it's a cause and effect relationship. So continuing on with the impact of trade law, class, I have been enjoying this internet sources, because the internet is so rich with PowerPoints and templates. The one that I showed you earlier is credited to prezi.com. Animated presentations on different topics. So I have also referred to this site for my PowerPoint presentation in my other class in credit transaction. So um, I don't take credit for the presentation. No? I just, to be efficient, especially that I don't have the time to nor the skills to have a uh, PowerPoint presentation. So why not use those readily available in the internet? I didn't have to pay anything. No? I think this is made public. So thank you to the provider. Now, in addition to that, to further discuss on the impact of train law on individual taxpayers, since we are in our income tax on individuals, I have here another slide, another presentation by Attorney Sofronia R. Perez Onesa, CPA, CMA, for the, I suppose this is a seminar for the Association of Government Internal Auditors. Um, So again, we'll focus on the impact of the train law on individual income tax. Okay. So before anything else, we classify individual taxpayers into three. So if you're earning through compensation or through an employer-employee relationship, whether it be from the government or from a private entity or corporation, um, you belong to this compensation income earner. So purely derived from employer-employee relationship. If you're also belonging to this class, you should know by now that you ought not to file your income tax return. It is your employer who files the income tax return for you as long as the tax is correctly withheld. Ibig sabihin, if you don't have any other source um, of income aside from your compensation, so your tax is correctly withheld. Kung mapapansin nyo in your payslip, deductible agad doon yung income tax monthly, and then this is reduced into an annual income tax return the employer will submit to the BIR. Okay, self-employed professional. So self-employed professional may be a sole proprietor, an independent contractor, or even professionals like lawyers, doctors, contractors, and so on. No? So those income not derived from employer-employee relationship, self-employed practitioner. Okay, so just the same, they're also subject to tax. However, this time they have to file their income tax returns. They are required. No? So it's as I've mentioned in our previous discussion on general principles, ang ang mechanism natin with the BIR is self-assessing. So you have to self-assess your income tax. So ikaw yung magvo-volunteer ng information as to how much will be your gross income, expenses, and finally your bottom figure. Um, with expenses, I know we will discuss this in more detail in the coming discussions, but um, important thing is that yung deductions niyo class on the allowable expenses must be related to the operations of the business. It must be necessary and ordinary. And more importantly, it must be substantiated by official receipts or sales invoices. Sales invoices for the sale of goods and official receipts for the sale of services. Okay, so um, we also follow accrual method, okay, for seller of goods and service, seller of goods or commodities, and we usually follow the cash basis methods for service oriented enterprises. So ayun. Mixed income earner, okay. So both earning from compensation and from practice of profession. So does he file? Yes, he has to file his income tax return with respect to his earnings earned from business. Uh, so he has to pay for the income tax on that. So again, if all of your global income, as I call it, does not exceed 250,000, then um, you need not pay the tax, but you still have to comply with the filing. Compliance is different from payment. No? I have to emphasize on that. So as I said, no, this has been discussed in the previous slides. You compare the old graduated income tax rate under Section 24A with the new ones. And then onwards, much lesser yung tax rate. So there is a decrease in tax rates further. Okay. A special consideration to 13th month pay and other benefits. Uh, Before the train law, mas maliit. There is a lower threshold for that. When I was in college, I think the threshold was 30,000. And then there was a tax reform during the time of Gloria Arroyo. Naging no, nag, naging 50,000 or 60,000, something like that. And then now naging 82,000, and then with the train law, it's now at 90,000. So aside from your regular compensation, there is another exclusion in relation to your monthly 13th month pay. No, what are included in this 13th month pay? Um, there are companies that pays 14th month, 15th month, 16th month, as long as the total accumulated amount does not exceed 90,000, then, well, it is still exempted. No? It's not strictly applicable to 13th month pay allowance or 13th month pay. Any kinds of bonuses or gratuities given by the employer on top of your regular salaries, uh, that's included in this threshold. So, what if sumobra sa 90,000? So only the excess of the 90,000 will be subject to income tax. And of course, aside from that, kung may excess man, you will include that in your income tax return or in your compensation income subject to tax. What if hindi pa umabot doon sa 250,000? So again, it will not be taxable, but I don't think it will not, because for a company to give you this kind of pays, it means that you are on the higher level of the corporate ladder. Okay. So the ceiling of 90,000 may be increased through issuances from the Secretary of Finance, no, through the BIR, to consider inflation rate at the end of the taxable year. Okay, so this is a simple comparative computation on how the income tax is computed before the train law and how it is now computed with the train law. So if your annual taxable compensation, I'm talking about an employer-employee relationship, because this is the example is that of a pure compensation earner. So if your ATC is 600,000, okay, before train law, you have APE. These are additional personal exemption. Nakalagay talaga sa Batas Class, which is now deleted, that an individual is allowed basic personal exemption of 50,000 and an additional personal exemption of 25,000 per child at up to maximum of 4 children. So if na fully utilize mo yon, that's 25,000 o times 4, it's 100,000 plus your basic personal of 50,000. So a total of 150,000. So your taxable income is under the old NIRC, it will be reduced to 450,000. Okay. This one, kasi threshold before is 10,000. So this is obviously subject to tax. This is obviously also subject to tax under the train law because it exceeds the 250 threshold. Okay. But as to the tax rates, the applicable tax rates, it now differs because um, under the train law, you will have an annual income tax savings of 30,000. Okay. So I mentioned also previously about this optional 8% gross tax. This is a new introduction to your train law. In lieu of your income tax computed under the normal computation for Section 24A and the 3% tax, in lieu of those two taxes, you have the option to avail of this 8% gross tax. Siguro, in an accounting perspective, if um, if you have lesser amount of expenses, and you will see that your net income or bottom figure will be higher because of that lesser expenses and higher sales, then I think you opt to go with the 8% gross tax uh, to lessen the impact of the bottom figure. Pero kung makikita mo naman that you have high expenses and these are all substantiated, and that your net income or bottom figure will be much lower, okay, you need not avail of this 8% gross. Much more if your bottom figure is a loss. So need not to avail of the 8%. So it depends upon you. Okay, so this is where the tax specialist will come in. They will advise you on what to do regarding these tax options. Who are qualified to avail of this 8%. So, kung gross compensation earner ka or if you are earning through employer-employee relationship, you cannot avail this. Ha? This is only with respect to those self-employed professionals. Okay? Yung may mga allowable deductions or expenses in their operations. Okay? Okay, so these are all computations on how you uh, get a tax, a better scheme on paying lower taxes in those both options allowed by the law. So I will not discuss this further um, because we are not concerned with that. We are only concerned with the legal implications of the trade law. So I think class, that's about it. Again, the objective of the trade law is to reduce poverty and to increase the infrastructures in our country. No? So to alleviate the poor, to focus on socio-economic welfare, to relax the taxation on minimum wage earners. However, as a drastic effect to the, or hindi naman drastic, as a negative effect on the trade law, consumption prices have increased, you know, because the government, in order to give leeway to one sector, um, uh, it has to give burden to another sector. You know, at the end of the day, the government needs the revenue in order to operate, no, based on the lifeblood doctrine, the necessity doctrine, and all those doctrines. So you have to give some, you have to take some to give some. Okay? So if you, pag pinagbigyan mo yung isang sector, meron kang isang sector na is a sacrifice. And with the strain law, the government sacrificed non-essential goods and services. So, yung mga wants, okay, such as automobiles, okay, sweetened beverages, hindi mo naman kailangan yan, nakaka-diabetes pa. So, umiwas na lang, uh, go healthy and natural. Yung non-renewable energy sources are also taxed higher. So to encourage, no, uh, the preservation of our environment. So hopefully this trade law in the long run, because we are still in the second tranche, we will still have to see the effect come 2023 when the third tranche will come into effect. So there will be further decrease on those favored sectors and there will be further increase on those disfavored sectors. So with that, thank you for listening and I will see you on our next topic. We will start formally individual income tax. Okay. So